Take us back to when you first thought of the concept for the secret world. What was your main sort of idea from the beginning?
Oh, that's a interesting question, because that's actually a long time ago that we first sort of, or I personally started thinking about this world. I mean, I always liked the genre, contemporary fantasy, contemporary dark fantasy, contemporary urban fantasy, things that sort of like Vertigo comic books and Neil Gaiman's writings and things that take place in the real world, but which sort of explores the mysteries in the world. And that was the genesis of it, and that's something that happened, I think, in the mid to late 90s, sort of like the idea of this universe where you could be sort of a regular person fighting and, you know, the evil rising and exploring this sort of the secret world, the hidden places, the dark places of this world. And I think, I mean, as we went along then, I mean, the game didn't really come together as a proper game until 2002, and back then it was called Cabal, and we actually showed a demo of that at E3, and I think it was 2002. That's when sort of the whole concept congealed into to what we now know as the Secret World, a game where sort of you know, MMORPG with action-adventure elements, where you as a player become a hero, where you sort of take on these amazing cool powers and you go out and you fight evil and darkness across the world and throughout time. That's when that happened. And since then, of course, the team that worked on Cabal went on to do Dreamfall, but the sort of the idea and the concept went in, you know, around our heads for while we were doing that. So when we started working on the game in 2006, almost 3 years ago now, then I think we've again sort of expanded on what we thought the game was. We sort of, you know, we nailed down a lot more of the aspects of it, and of course that's also an ongoing process, but the universe itself and the setting and like all those mysteries, that's been something that's been constant, I think, since 2002, 2003.
Do you think it's a benefit, or is it like a trap to work on something for that long, or is it good to be able to go back and change things?
I think sometimes working on something too long is very dangerous, because it becomes a pet project, but I think that the game has changed a lot in terms of how it plays and what you actually do, to feel like a very different game than what we did back in 2002, even though the setting and the universe is the same. So I think we've had chances to actually go and revisit the base concept and to say this is the right game to do, and we always evaluate and say, is this really the right game for this time? Yes, it is. It's absolutely perfect. It's a whole different type of setting. It's gameplay that, you know, most MMOs aren't really exploring or doing. It's definitely a game that I feel everybody on the team feels like, yeah, that's what they want to be working on. This is the game we want to play. So yes, it can be a danger. I think in our case it's been a benefit to really be able to revisit the concept and to work on it and let it mature for so long, and to become, especially when it comes to the story stuff, because that takes time. It takes time to create a universe. It takes years and years. So I mean, that's been a benefit.
Speaking of the universe and the story, how would you say it's different to make a universe and story for an MMO as opposed to an adventure game?
It's creating a universe for an MMO is a huge task, because you are making a game that's going to last a very long time, that you're going to have hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people like visiting and playing and exploring and analyzing and writing wikis about it and writing web pages about it and writing stories about it. And obviously you really need a lot of texture there, you need a lot of content. And that's also why we've put a lot of attention into creating a very rich universe that goes back actually 100 million years. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's actually, that's when things started in our universe, and then going through a lot of, you know, different civilizations that have risen and fallen, and up until modern times, and even look a little bit into the future, we mapped it all out. We know exactly what's going to happen, and I think that will be seeded in the game in a lot of interesting ways, through missions, through other gameplay that I can't really talk about now, to allow players to explore it and experience it, as well as being baked into sort of just the visuals of the world, the monsters you meet, the characters. All of it is sort of very, if you like play it carefully and you really analyze what you're doing, you'll find a lot of these sort of little hints and clues about what the world is. And I think that's going to keep people playing for a very long time, just the story in itself. So it's a huge challenge. It's much bigger than creating Longest Journey or Dreamfall in terms of the story, but it's similar. It's just vastly more vast.
You're well known for your female characters. Is that something that we will see in the Secret World as well?
We are going to have very strong female characters. Of course, the most important characters are the player characters, and then, you know, the options for both male and female players will be, you know, really, really cool. You can look any way you want. If you want to look like You know, if you want to look grunge or punk or indie rock, you can do that. If you want to look like, you know, a homeless person, you can do that. If you want to look like a jock or a nerd, you can do that. You know, I mean, there's tons of options, and in terms of clothing, in terms of customizing how your character looks, you know, like, you know, kind of jewelry wear and tattoos and stuff like that. So, I mean, yes, those are the most important characters, but in terms of like non-player characters, we are going to have a ton of really, really cool ones. You know, I mean, that we're writing a lot of those characters now, in both male and female. And but yeah, I mean, I think we have sort of a expectation of having good characters. So I think we're spending a lot of time with that, myself and the writers, to make sure we have some very memorable and very interesting and some very screwed up characters.
The omission of levels in the system is an interesting take. What kind of challenges does that present in motivating the player?
Doing a class-less and level-less game has challenges that you don't get when you choose to be a fighter and you work your way through 50 levels of gameplay. Obviously, I mean, there's balancing issues, and there's I mean, there's still challenges you would meet regardless, but I think they're definitely different. There's going to be rewards for playing this game regardless. It's not like levels are the only reward. It's not like, you know, you can't strive for something unless you have the next level to get to. You have tons of powers that you can learn. You have tons of customizability. There's content you need really to sort of explore the world and experience it, to find out about and to get into. So reward system, there's a huge amount of rewards, and I think people really appreciate the fact that it is a different role-playing system than most MMOs out there.
Just one more question. I think we're out of time, but what kind of lessons did you learn from Age of Conan when moving on, when your Funcom is taking on the Secret World?
I mean, obviously, Funcom has learned a lot through developing both Anarchy Online and Age of Conan, and I think, I mean, the team is a different team than the Conan team, but we've definitely looked at everything they've done. I mean, they've done a lot of things right, and obviously, I mean, those are things we're building on top of. What kind of lessons? I think definitely when it comes to the combat in Age of Conan, it was something that people really enjoyed, and I think the sort of experience of getting into the world and exploring that sort of the beginning of the world, it felt really different and very unique. I think some of the things that maybe people felt were weaker in Conan, I think those are definitely improved now. The game is really improved, and you know, it's a fantastic game. But I think those are also things we're looking at in terms of items and role-playing system. Those are things that we are doing quite differently. Since we are a different team, we have different philosophies. But again, we're really taking lessons learned from Conan and applying that to the Secret World.